What's up, everybody? Mark with Cardivox Academy here, and I'm very excited today because you know what we haven't done in a long time? You know what we have not done in a long time? A co-reaction. And the co-reaction is actually my favorite format of vocal video that we do because not only do I get to listen to some awesome music, but I get to listen to some awesome music with the vocalist who did the performance. And we get to nerd out talking about vocals. You know, Dickie Allen, Phil Bozeman, Adam Mercer, Austin Dickey. We've been able to do this with a lot of cool people. And I really like it as well because even though I am a full-time vocal coach, I usually learn a little something. I usually get some sort of little knowledge nugget and I tuck it away for my own use later. So it's a lot of fun. But anyway, if you're new to the channel, again, my name is Mark. I'm a metal vocalist of roughly 14 years, give or take. I didn't know if I should, I didn't pay attention to when I started. I was just making noises at the bus stop, basically. And I'm in a band called Kardashev. We're on Metal Blade Records. We released an album last year. You can check it out if you want. Doesn't sound a lot like Face Yourself, but doesn't matter. Maybe you'll like it. And like I said, I'm a full-time vocal coach. My main gig is teaching people how to make all sorts of cool noises, stuff like safely and efficiently so they don't hurt themselves and they can pursue their metal vocal dreams. So that's what we do here. I pause a lot. I talk a lot about the music. If you want an uninterrupted track, Spotify is free. So you can use that instead of my channel. And it's a lot of fun. And if you like the content, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And that's all I got. So after a very strategically placed YouTube pause, let's go ahead. And you probably know her as Lady Yaya on Instagram, or Yasmine. And she is the vocalist of Face Yourself. And I'm very excited to talk with her. YouTube pause. Here she is.
Yay, thank you for having me.
Yo, thank you so much for coming on the channel. I was really excited to do another one of these, and it was on my mind. I was like, I want to do another co-reaction. And Quigs, my business partner, he was like, I know exactly who. And when he mentioned, I was like, yes, let's get her on the channel. So I'm super excited to talk about your music and to have you here. I know it's the evening for you, so thank you for taking time out of your evening. How have you been? How are things going? How's life? Catch me up on the details.
I'm good, thank you. I just came back from work right before this, and I finished a bit later than what it was supposed to be, so I had to run and eat super fast, but here we are.
Well, I appreciate, you know, I always feel bad when people like have to rush, but I also appreciate that you're here. So I'm excited to talk about your voice and specifically the song Sirens. Everybody's going to be watching this and they're going to be like, he's so rude. He's looking at his phone. I want to talk to you about the first time I ever heard your band because it's kind of a fun story. And I can't remember the name of the song because it's in French. But it translates to like large fight or like big battle or something.
Big fight. Yes, it's grosse bagarre.
That's the one. So I was in my kitchen and I was cleaning up. I do most of the cooking and cleaning while my wife watches our son. And I was cleaning up and I had Spotify just like shuffling, and you know how it can like give suggestions, and that song came on, and like I had seen you on Instagram before, and I had an idea of who you were, but you know, my phone is over here and the song came on and I was like washing a plate and I literally had to stop and I was just like, oh, I was like, what the fuck? And then the song was just like so short. I was like, what the fuck happened? So I like went to put it on repeat and I was like, holy shit, this is Yasmine from Instagram. And I was like, oh, and then I went on like this crazy deep dive and it was a lot of fun. Is that the song that most people like mention, or do they usually come in on a different one when they listen to your band?
Usually the song that is mentioned the most is Shadow Self, because it's the one that has the most views. It's the second song we released, but yeah, usually the names that come back are Shadow Self, Grosse Bagarre, and Death Reflection.
They're all so good. And you know,
Thank you.
Of course, one thing I really like about your music, and especially your take on vocals, and we'll talk about that as we go, is that it is very like aggressive isn't the right word because metal is aggressive. Like me telling you your vocals are aggressive, it's like, well, no shit, right? But like it's very like irreverently aggressive. Like you are like in everyone's face, but it's also not incoherent. Like there's you can move to the song, you can kind of tell what's happening, but at the same time you're kind of like just getting like obliterated. Like I'm sitting there like doing my dishes and my face is like getting smashed. And so I'm really excited to check out this song. Now one
Thank
thing
you.
yeah, of course. I thank you for being here. Now with this song, Sirens, I always like to see, is there anything that I should know or I should be listening for when I push play here and we listen to this song together, or do you prefer me to go in super duper blind?
I think you should just go for it. Just listen to it and see how you feel about it.
It's always blind. Everybody always makes me go in blind. Doesn't make my job any easier, but it does make it more fun. Okay. Well, in that case, I think I'm ready to get started. But one thing for anybody who's watching this video and they haven't heard Face Yourself, one thing that's very true about y'all's music is there's a lot of stank. It brings the stank into the room. So we're gonna light some incense here to help with the absolute stank faces that I'm sure are gonna happen. So give me a quick second here. This is some Nag Champa. Okay. Hell yeah.
Let's go.
Let's go. Now after another YouTube pause, when I put this down, we're gonna get started. Face Yourself, Sirens, Lady Yaya. Here we go. I'm already pausing it there, and anybody who doesn't want me to pause it can just deal with it. So, holy cannoli! There are a lot of things we could talk about here, but one thing that I think is most interesting is like I'm actually not too familiar with your background. Usually I am, but I'm not too familiar. I know you've been at this for a while. How long have you been screaming for? Because you sound like you've been screaming twice as long as I have.
I actually started screaming when I was 14, and I'm 24. I'm going to be 25 in a few weeks, so it's been a while, but I have been mostly in local bands, small bands, and Face Yourself is my first real serious project. So it's a bit different. I'm learning everything about professional music only now, even though I've been doing vocals for a very long time.
Yeah. Well, you've got an incredible mastery on your voice. And one thing I really like, not just about your voice as a whole, but your approach to vocals, is you move very much between lots of wide open spaces and lots of very narrow vocal tracts. Like a lot of your lows, one sound that you have is this sort of like sound. Your jaw is dropped, but your tongue is curled up, and I love that sound. And one thing that I love about the way that you use it is a lot of vocalists will just use it as a texture here and there, but with you, it's like bam in your face. It's something that you use quite frequently. Is that a sound that you found by accident, or were you trying to go for a specific thing, or were you just playing around? How did you find that type of vocal?
So I actually do it a bit different. I don't put my tongue up, but I put it like a low tunnel. So I put it behind my bottom teeth like this.
Oh, interesting.
And the thing is, I actually tried for so long to get better at lows because I've always liked deathcore, but I used to do more death metal vocals. So I have more of a death metal growl more than actually deathcore. And so I tried to get more into deathcore, and I tried to do this round sound like a lot of vocalists does with their tongue up. And for me, I don't know why it doesn't change much to the texture of my voice. So I just do the tongue, I put it behind the bottom teeth, and I call this the Luke Griffin lows because he does a lot of that. Yeah. Like, he's one of my favorite vocalists, and I love how he does this kind of vocals. And so because he uses more highs and mids and a bit of those lows in his songs. And I couldn't relate a lot to vocalists in deathcore who don't do much lows. I was like, oh, this one is like so popular and he does so good and doesn't use as much lows in his songs. So maybe I can relate to him a little more. And so I tried to do this more sound, and it works. It sounds fun. So I kept doing it.
Yeah, it's a really neat sound, and it's one thing that I love about metal vocals, but also this job is hearing how different people create similar sounds in entirely different ways. You know,
yeah,
like for me, when I do that, it definitely has like a straight up like tunnel sound, but for you, yeah, it's much more of like a guttural. And one thing that I really find interesting is how you pair it with like your soft palate and the back of your mouth is smaller. Now, just in this section, I'm not talking about your voice as a whole, but just in this section, it's very like versus and so I'm excited to hear how you play with that color and texture. Also, you added different levels of your voice in there. You know, like sometimes your scream is all just, and other times it's like you can hear that voicing underneath. Was that a skill you had to like hone and develop over time, or was it really natural? Hey, this scream is going to sound like my voice. This scream is going to sound like just raw grit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's actually very new for me because all these years I've been doing vocals, I mostly did like death growls, more mid sounds. And so I started learning highs and gutturals and stuff like that last year in my room.
Oh, wow.
And so a lot of those sounds are very new to me. Even though I've been doing vocals for a long time, I kept doing one technique, and I've been just doing the same type of music for so long and secretly wanting to do deathcore so much. And because I didn't know a lot about girls who were in deathcore bands, I didn't have many girls to look up to in this specific genre of metal. And so I thought maybe I could never do it because I don't have this model to look up to. But last year I was like, let's just try. And yeah, I just started learning like all the tunnels and the gutturals and all those, adding a little spice to my vocals last year. So I don't always know exactly what I'm doing. I know that my bass is 4 scores from what I know, but yeah, the rest is just trying things.
That is incredibly important. Like having your normal practice and then having practice where you just mess around. I do that all the time, and I encourage my students to do it as well. Let's keep going because I have like 6 other questions I want to ask you, but we should also listen to some music. So let's go ahead. Let's keep going. Love the intro so far. The down tempo.
Thank you.
I'm a sucker. Like most of the metal that I like adore ends up either being down tempo or having down tempo moments. So already I'm in it. Anyways, here we go. I'm talking too much.
Thank you.
We're just gonna talk about that. So one question I have for you, in teaching a lot of my students, one thing that is always something they're curious about is what a scream feels like. And having taught for as long as I have, I always find that it's a sort of difficult conversation to have because, of course, there's what a scream should feel like. But we all sort of relate to, one thing I've really learned is we all sort of relate to our bodies really differently, like really, really differently. And it's also really hard to feel the vocal tract if you don't really know. It's like when you have something stuck in your teeth and you can find it with your tongue, but you can't find it with your finger,
Yeah.
So my question for you, especially because people ask me this all the time on highs, how would you describe And I know I'm asking you to do something where you're like, or maybe you have a perfect description. Shit, I don't know. How would you describe the way that your high screams feel, just very broadly?
Honestly, like, because I started practicing them last year, I just tried to think of how can I achieve that. And it feels like a base of talking in a witch voice. And on top of that, a scream. So like it feels a bit gurgly, like the false chords I usually do, but also I feel like I might be using my nose, or I do something and I do a bit of like this. I don't know how to explain this, but it's like goes through my nose a little bit. It depends if I do like highs, normal highs, or tunnels. I also use different things when I do tunnels, but it does feel like I talk like that a little bit, you know, like a witch, and on top of that a scream. Like I can feel it in my throat gurgly, but also like I use my diaphragm a lot for power. So I don't know if that makes sense what I just said, but I've never described my screams before. But
yeah, it's tough to do. It totally makes sense. Now from the way you're describing it, it sounds like you have a little bit of a process. Like when you're gonna be in the studio and when you're gonna play, like, you know, if I'm gonna do high vocals, for me, like, well, we haven't been on stage in a while, but like if I'm gonna record, I have like a process that I'll go through really quickly. I'll be like, you know, I'll do something like, right? Sort of like slowly or quickly climbing up there. Do you have a process like that you go through? And if so, can you show me what it is? If you don't, that's okay. But if you do,
I'm not sure. Let's try a high scream. Yeah, it does feel like I use my nose a little bit, but I don't have to go through something to do it. I just do it because I don't know. It's just kind of natural now. But yeah, it does feel like I do this. Yeah. You know?
It's that voice acting approach, and I think that's one thing that I like about this section that you just did in this song. You did high vocals for quite a long time within the context of a song, right? That was quite a long period of time, but it never got boring because you were doing a lot of like modulation of the vowels. Like, you know, it wasn't da 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 da. It was ba da, and it sounded almost like you were like telling a story. Is that an approach that you take with your vocals frequently, like thinking about it almost as if it's a speaking voice, or is that something you reserve just for your high screams?
Yeah, it's like sometimes the way I can scream in the more goblin voices, I try to make it sound a bit like I'm talking like a goblin.
Yeah.
And so when I do those things, I think a lot about Dickie Allen, who is like my absolute favorite vocalist. And in some of the Infant Annihilator songs, he has moments when he does a lot of tunnels, and there are moments when he's like he's speaking with his goblin voices. Like it's the music gets calmer, and he's like you know, something like that. And I'm like, I love that, and it does seem like a bit of talking above music, and it just takes you to some storytelling kind of point of view in the music, which I really like. That's actually how I wrote the lyrics for the whole EP, for this EP. I wrote it in a storytelling perspective.
Interesting. That's a good take too, because it helps you have that sort of narrative approach. And you know, a great thing about this is an exercise I often will do. I'll say, like, learn to take your scream. There are some screams this is hard to do with, but learn to take your scream and talk with it. Because if you can speak with it, then you can be fairly certain you're very balanced. It's a really good way to help with overprojection, which you do not sound like you're overprojecting. But if anybody out there is watching and your screams, you're overprojecting, even if it sounds kind of goofy, take your scream and just sort of talk with it, like, "Hey everybody, my name is Mark and I like pizza." Because then when you lean back into it, it sounds a lot cooler. But yeah, very interesting insights. Anything else you want to add before I hit that play button again?
I don't know. Just keep going with the thing.
Hell yeah, let's do it. I love how you use your voiced screams, the ones where you can hear like that underneath, to really accentuate and punctuate longer sections. It's really like unsettling in a good way. Like, you know, when you watch a horror movie and there's like that scene where it makes you uncomfortable, but that's also the reason why you watch these horror movies, because there's that little like, that's kind of the vibe, like that scream where I can hear your voice. It's like I'm walking through the forest and I hear that off in the distance and I'm like, I'm about to die. This is it. This is, you know, this is how I go. With your,
there's actually a new technique that I just found out about a few months ago when I joined Face Yourself. It's in Face Yourself, Corey, who plays guitar in Face Yourself, is also the vocalist of Levitated. And so because he's been doing deathcore vocals and he's been in bands longer than me in the more, you know, music video, recording music kind of stuff, he has so many advice to give me, and I learned so much from Corey and my whole band, really. And he just told me, I want to see if you can do that. It would just sound so sick to have you sound like you, but like have a scream with your voice. He calls them shouts, so he has shouts of vocals too that he uses sometimes in Face Yourself too. But he was like, you should try that, and I just tried that and sent him a vocal memo on the phone, and he was like, how did you do that just like this? And I don't know, his way of explaining to me what he wanted, I just could understand what he was looking for, and so I tried. And so these vocals are very new to me, and I started using them in Face Yourself. It's really, really new for me, but I love them. They're super fun, and it's also a bit feminine energy. It's a bit different. And yeah, I think they're fun.
Yeah, it really holds, especially because it's building on like a very like head voicey space. It's not like it's right, and it has like that brightness underneath all that grit. It's very, very interesting. How do you decide? You know, one thing that I know some people run into. I run into this all the time in when I'm writing vocals for Kardashev. I'll be listening to a song and I'll have like 4 or 5 or 6 different ideas. How do you decide what kind of vocal goes where? Because obviously, you know, one thing that a lot of people don't think about is that you're not just someone who can scream. You are a vocalist. You are an artist, right? So how do you decide what type of scream you put where? That's always a question I'm really interested in.
Well, I don't know how to explain, but I had different ways of writing songs before, because just before Face Yourself, I was in a grindcore band.
Oh,
and
nice.
So, yeah. And when we were writing songs, we were writing songs like just jamming at rehearsal, and we would write songs like this. But now, me being in France and the rest of my band in New York, the way we write music is the boys, they write a bunch of instrumentals, and I choose between all the instrumentals, and if one of them speaks to me, I will just start writing lyrics. I found a story, something to write about, and usually the ideas come to me at night, so I can't scream when I write. So what I do is I listen to the song and I start writing lyrics, and I hear what I'm writing, and I'm like, oh, this moment I just feel like if I'm gonna do an epic high, it's gonna sound super good, and here, oh, breakdown is coming, I want to do a long low and do something super dark and maybe a more classic deathcore. And I don't really have a way of being like, oh, this goes high, this goes low, this goes mids or shouts. It's just the way I'm writing, I can hear. And what I do is, because I don't want to forget the next day after I sleep, I don't want to forget what I do, so I just read the lyrics while listening to the music, and I repeat until I remember the song, and the next day when I have time, I record it.
That makes, yeah. You know, and so it's a little bit of vibes. It's a little bit of vibes.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. You know, sometimes people, they'll ask me, they'll say like, oh, like, you know, I really want help with songwriting, and like I can help people do a lot of stuff, but with songwriting, I'm like, I just vibe. I don't know. Like I'm like you, like I just vibe.
It's personal, yeah.
Yeah, you listen to the song and you just kind of do what moves you, and I can totally relate to the frustration of having all these ideas at night, because like,
yeah,
you're looking at me on my webcam, but my son sleeps right in that room. You can see it on the in the main video, but he's one, and if I wake him up, it's everybody in the house is gonna have a bad time. So I'll be like sitting here and I have Reaper open, and I'm just like, I do this in the microphone. I'm like, and then a low scream, and then a high scream, and he's over there like, and I'm like, oh shit, you know what I mean? But yeah, I totally get that. Now with that being said, you know, it may not be as black and white as this, but one thing I also am always interested in when I speak with vocalists such as yourself is how you see yourself in the band. Like, for example, because of the type of music that we do, I see myself almost as like a supplementer, right? Like if this was a D&D, a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, like I'm the bard in the background throwing out stuff. I'm like, here you go. I'm just here to help out. Do you see yourself as playing more of a supplemental role to the band? Do you see yourself, you know, you're in a genre that's much more vocal forward. Do you see yourself as like the driving force of the band, or are you more adaptive? Do you just kind of fill whatever role is needed at the time?
It is really difficult for me. I'm really learning all about this now because it's my first real band. And the thing is, in everyday's life, I'm actually a special effect makeup artist for the film industry. And so I work in the shadows and I do makeup on actors and big talents all the time. And I'm always in the shadows. So for me, being for the first time in a band and being in deathcore, I am the face of the band. And for me, sometimes it can be so difficult to have this role. But I know that the band is really pushing me to be more confident and to drive the band as the image of this deathcore vocalist kind of thing happening in the genre right now.
Yeah.
But the truth is, all my band members, they have so much experience, and even as vocalists, so they teach me so much. And I feel like if there wasn't the musicians, I wouldn't be doing anything. If Eric, our drummer, who also runs a music video company, and he does videos for all the deathcore bands that you have listened to, and so he's always like helping me with image and outfits, and he's like, you can do this, I see this in you. And like, when I auditioned for the band, I didn't see myself getting it. And it was just, oh, I'm going to audition, I'm going to see what's going to happen. But Eric and Tom chose me. And when they chose me, it was the first time that I felt that I was a first choice, that I mattered in a way, you know, because it's this duality with my job and what I'm doing now in music and Face Yourself working so well, so quickly. I'm still figuring out where I am, honestly. I'm learning. Wow. It's all new for me. So I'm very thankful for my bandmates because they are truly the best. Like my brothers, they teach me so much. So I am a student.
Yeah.
Really, I'm a student.
That blows my mind because, and I promise when I say this, I'm not saying it just because we're on a call together, we're doing a video, but like not just in this video, but the way that you carry your voice, the way that you perform, the way that you hold yourself, and the way that you look as far as like your confidence on like Instagram and everything, like you look like you belong here. It's like,
thank you.
There was this one phrase that I really like. I can't remember his name. If anybody watching this is a fan of American football, let me know. I'm not a big fan of sports, but this is a phrase that really stuck with me and has been important. And I think it applies to you really well. Basically, a lot of people in, well, many sports, but especially American football, when they reach the end zone, they do like this big dramatic dance. And there was this one guy, every time he got there, he would just like do a little nod and toss the ball back. And people were like, why don't you celebrate? And he's like, it's because I'm supposed to be there. I'm not surprised. You know, like that's where I belong. Yeah. That's where I belong. And that's what you look like. So when you're saying like, oh, I'm still learning all this, I'm like, geez, you fooled me. Because like, you totally look and carry yourself like you're supposed to be here.
I just have a great team of great bandmates and awesome people in our team. Honestly, it's all thanks to them.
and that's so huge. You know, it's so interesting to me in my own experience. But when I talk to about a bunch of vocalists, there's always like so much more involvement from the other band members than I think sometimes people realize. Like, you know, there have been many times where I'll be like, oh, talk to me about this iconic part. And they'll be like, oh, our bassist wrote that. And I'm like, what? You know what I mean? But let's keep going. I'm excited to hear more. This song is filthy, by the way. Just like absolute,
Thank you.
You know, I love it. Here we go.
Thank you.
All right, we're talking about that vowel. Jeez. So that it's really cool. I know I'm pausing for one vowel. Sorry to our editor, Ludo. Love you, buddy. But that E, right? It just is like dominant, right? And it's so fun to talk to vocalists because like sometimes one specific vowel or one specific consonant, you're just like, oh, that E. I don't even know what the lyric is. Let me play it. I'm gonna put it back to 3 minutes.
It's murderer murmurs to my ear.
It's everybody watching, listen to this E. And one reason I like this E is because E can be a difficult vowel for a lot of vocalists, new and experienced, to manage, because E is traditionally kind of closed, right? E. But you have a lot of openness. It's like your tongue is, you know, E, but the back is like, did you push your jaw forward when you did this? E.
Murderer murmurs to my ears. I think I do it a bit like if I did a guttural, but I try to do. Yeah, I think I do it.
It looks like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I do feel I do something. Yeah, I'm like clipping my jaw a bit.
Yeah, it looks like your jaw moves a little bit forward, and
yeah,
it looks like it's also interesting. Your E is like an oo. E,
yeah.
My back in college, my French teacher called it en coup de poule. She's like, hey, if you need to make these if you need to make en coup de poule, if you know, you know. But yeah, everybody listen to this ear. It's thick, but it still has that brightness that is identifiable as an E vowel. So cool. Here we go. Oh, and then I love how you spit it out. You're just like, ugh,
yeah.
Ugh. You're just like, it's like, and that's what I'm talking about, right? And I want to point this out so you know that I'm not just talking, but you sometimes when you scream, you almost sound like you're like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like your vocals do this. Like this is your vocal, and you're like, you know, you're like, I don't need that shit anymore.
Yeah.
Get that fucking line out of my face. You know what I mean? You like,
this is the energy.
It's like you're so disgusted by everything. I think one person who also does that really well he sounds totally different. And I talk about him all. Everybody's gonna see this video and roll their eyes because I'm a simp basically. But Alex Tayan of Black Tongue, he does his vocals.
Yeah.
He does his vocals almost sometimes like he hates them sometimes, but in such a good way. But like I love that resonant.
He's also a big influence for me. I love the whole album. Nadir is so good. I love his vocals, and I don't love just his vocals, but you can hear from the way he performs his vocals, you can hear and feel the emotions. It's like a performance. Even if you can't see it, you can just picture the performance and the emotions just by listening to the music. That's why I really love his vocals. And a lot of people will be like really unimpressed because he can keep maybe sometimes 1 or 2 tones. But I think he's one of the best because of the way you can feel how pissed and sad and so desperate. That's what I love so much from Nadir, is it's so melancholic and sad. And I love sad deathcore. I love it.
I do too. Like, you know, I've said it before, you know, a lot of deathcore, it's like I love it and I respect it, but it's not like my favorite genre of metal. But sad deathcore, like
amazing.
If somebody's like shredding and there's like a symphonic keyboard in the background and the vocalist is like, I'm like, damn, that is very impressive, and I'm jamming out to it and it's awesome. But if like somebody does deathcore and they make my like chest hurt, right? And it's not a heart palpitation like that. Ooh, that gets me. And it makes me stand here and talk. Well, I wouldn't call this a sad song, but this is a very cathartic song, especially, you know, make me feel something, you know?
Yeah.
So cool. All right, I'm going to try to get through the end of this song without pausing. So just do me a favor and don't do anything awesome for the last part of this song to distract me.
Okay, I'll try.
just play it a little close to the chest, okay? Here we go. It's a really interesting balance of distortion that you have. What are some of these video suggestions? Get out of here. It's really interesting. You have a very interesting distortion that kind of comes through on some of your lows. It's like a little thrummy, a little like.
Yeah. So this is my attempt to gutturals. Is I do a basic low, but I do again this thing with my tongue, but also I use my nose, and I don't know how to explain this, but it sounds like this, and I feel like I use my nose and I blow my cheeks in a way. It just make it like if I do a basic low, it will be like. But if I do this sort of guttural, it sounds a bit more distorted.
Yeah.
It has my nose with it. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like I do this little thing with my nose, like a pig. Like it just sounds different this way.
Yeah. That's one of the really fun things about metal is that like in like clean singing and traditional singing, you would never want to be like, you know, I can show you the world. You wouldn't want to do that. But with our gutturals, we can like, you know, go from here to like we can purposefully move more air out of there, and it makes it sound super cool. The thrumming that I hear in there, it's not bad at all. It's a great sound. It almost sounds like either your epiglottis, like that little trap door that covers your vocal cords, or two little cartilages called the arytenoids are going like along with it, and it gives it this like really like almost like slam. It kind of has like a little like, I don't know if I'd call it like full on slam, but it has like a little bit of a slam vibe that I think is really cool. And that's all I really have to say about it. I was just like, oh, that's interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, you know, learning more about you in this video and how your journey has gone. One thing that I think I'm curious about is what sort of advice do you have for people who are just learning? Because, you know, not everybody takes lessons. Not everybody needs lessons. Some people just don't have the opportunity, right? And it sounds like you're predominantly self-taught. Is that correct?
Yeah, I learned everything mostly by myself. And last year I took a coach for a few months to just help me develop my vocals a little more. And he really helped me mostly for vocal health and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it really depends on everyone's way of doing vocals or anyone's feelings, you know. I think it's good to be self-taught, to just, you know, try to do things by yourself. But if you, that's the thing about me, is I don't like staying at my level. I want to always learn more, and I'm always learning, and I do want to still learn so much more. And if you want to develop what you do, it can be interesting to take a coach too, just to go even further in what you can do. But you can also develop things by yourself. Obviously, a lot of people do that. But I think it's just, if you really want to be like, I want to develop this even more, I want to try this thing that I don't know anything about, or maybe it can be interesting to take a few lessons with a coach, and just to make sure that you're doing things in a healthy way and you're not hurting yourself too. It can be interesting to have a coach for this.
When you were learning by yourself, when you were self-teaching, what were some of the things, like, were there any moments where you were like, you know, you're by yourself, you're in your room or in your car or wherever, were there any moments where you were like, oh, I just figured something out, or like, oh, okay, something? Talk to me about some of those moments, even if it's just one, if you can remember anything.
I think it was probably the first time I did a real scream.
Hell yeah.
When I started learning vocals, I would learn a lot to Cannibal Corpse, Scourge of Iron. I sang this so much, too much, I think. But yeah, I just kept trying, and I would do like the like behind, like when you have something stuck behind your throat, and you're like and I think it's the time I figured that my diaphragm existed. I was like, and it was not even, it was, and it was like, oh my God, it's a scream.
Yeah.
It's just, I kept watching YouTube videos on how to scream, and I would also listen to so many death metal bands, and then I found out like Despised Icon, and then Infant Annihilator, and when I got into deathcore, I was like, oh my God, there's just so much noises that you can do, so much things, so much opportunity. And when I couldn't find videos that could explain it, I would just listen to people and try to reproduce the noises, and sometimes it didn't work, but the day I could feel it, I was like, oh my God, I just figured something out. And then the next time you try it again and you can't do it anymore.
Yeah,
but it's a process. You have to practice to get it.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Scourge of Iron, because I have a lot of students out there who hate that song now. Not because it's a bad song, it's a great song. Yeah, it's a great song, but because that is like, when I have a student and they get like the basic false chord sound down, usually I tell them to practice the Scourge of Iron, because enthralled to the evil lord. You know, I mean, you know, I don't have to tell you about it.
Yeah, I love it.
But, you know, you touched on something I think is really important to talk about when it comes to not just the vocal journey, but learning anything, is when you get it, you're going to lose it. And then you find it again, and you lose it, and then you find it again. And one thing that freaks out a lot of people, that gets a lot of people scared, because they're like, I don't want to lose it. But it's that aspect of losing it and then refinding it, losing it and then refinding it, where a lot of learning happens, right?
Yeah.
So that's very cool. And yeah, that is exactly how false chord works. Earlier in the call, you were like, yeah, people tell me my bass line is false. Yeah. Like, yeah, that's crazy. I love hearing those stories. Well, yeah, I lost my train of thought because, like I told you before we kind of started recording, I'm kind of a fucking idiot. And I'm always like, huh? But yeah, I absolutely love this song. Great stuff.
Thank you.
I love your approach to vocals. I love how like unapologetic your voice sounds. It's great. It's all great stuff. Any bits of advice or shout outs to fans or anything like that you would give for somebody who maybe is in the position you were in when you were 14? They really want to get started, but they're not quite sure like where to go. Like what bit of encouragement would you throw out to them, if any?
I think the thing is to never give up. Like less than a year ago, I was posting my covers on TikTok and Facebook and would get so many hate comments and people tell me to quit. Don't listen to that. And one thing I remember too is I was on this Facebook group about metal vocalists, just people sharing their vocals, and there was a guy, he posted a video and it was not amazing, but he was just starting, you know, he was just learning, so it was super new to him, and everyone was so mean in the comments. And 6 months later he posted a video and he sounded amazing. So I think the secret is to really not give up and don't listen to negative stuff unless it's trying to help you and it's constructive, but otherwise it's to never give up. Do things safely, obviously, not hurting ourselves, even though it can happen when we learn. And yeah, I think sometimes you just have to, I don't know how to explain that. Sometimes I lose track of things because English is not my first language, but I don't really know how to explain that. But I've been for the longest time someone who's not very confident and who would still try things out, but would never really believe that it would work out. So sometimes if you want to try something and you're like, I want to audition to this band and I'm 100% sure I'm not going to end up having the job, just do it. I did that for Face Yourself and 30 people auditioned. And I heard some of the auditions and they were good. And it ended up being me, a person who was at the other side of the planet. Yeah. So I think that's the secret, is sometimes just think, I'm the shit, I can do it. You have to find it. You have to believe in yourself and just do it.
Yeah. You have to, like you said, you have to believe in yourself. You have to face yourself. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's a good one.
I'm sorry. Well, I think that's a good spot for us to start wrapping it up. So for anybody who may not know about your band or may not have seen you yet, what's the best way for them to find you? Go ahead. This is where you get to just plug your own stuff. Tell everybody the best way to find your music and all that. I mean, Spotify, but still.
Thank you for the opportunity of letting me share this first. But yeah, you can find us on Spotify and any streaming platform. Really, we are on social media, on Instagram, Facebook. We try to be more present on TikTok too. And we're doing our first show in New Jersey in January 27th with Sign of the Swarm. Nice. So come see us at our first show. It's gonna be fun. Our very first Face Yourself show. And yeah, we are everywhere. So just follow us and we can catch up. I run most of the social media, even though the boys help me sometimes, but usually I respond to most DMs. So yeah, let's talk. Let's share music stuff.
Hell yeah. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time. And for everybody who's watching, be sure to like, share, subscribe. Go check out Face Yourself. And as always, many thanks. Much love. I'm out.